They sat on the chairs I bought, laughing like I was the help, until I opened my briefcase and turned on the recorder. When my daughter-in-law said, "We're having family dinner," I smiled and signaled the staff to wheel in all 6 chairs, the ones with my name on the title. That night, in front of her entire family, I gave the ultimatum: apologize, return the chairs, or leave my hotel. Now, my name is Martha Ellison. I am 62 years old, and I am the proprietor of the Grey Heron. The salt-kissed air of Harbour Ridge followed me through the heavy oak doors, a familiar comfort. I was pulling my smallest suitcase, the wheels clicking softly over the reclaimed wooden floor of the lobby. It had been a successful 3-day trip sourcing antiques for the new wing, and I was looking forward to a quiet evening before the anniversary weekend. The Grey Heron, my hotel, was my sanctuary, built from the ashes of my old life. Every beam, every woven tapestry, was chosen by me. The lobby was calm, as it should be. Outside the tall windows, the Pacific churned in its reliable grey rhythm. The only sound was the tall grandfather clock in the corner, a piece I'd spent 6 months restoring. Tick, tock. Then, a new sound. A voice, sharp and thin, slicing through the peace. It was coming from the front desk. Noah, my best receptionist, was leaning forward, his face pale. He was usually the epitome of coastal calm, but now he was stammering. "Ma'am, I can't just... We have a confirmation." He had the phone on speaker, a breach of protocol unless a guest was becoming aggressive. And this voice was aggressive. "I don't care what you have." The voice snapped. I froze. I knew that voice. It was my daughter-in-law, Tessa. "I need 5 rooms for my family, starting tonight. The best ones. And cancel the booking for the mother-in-law. Her name is Martha Ellison. Just cancel it. Cancel her booking." The audacity was stunning, but the casual cruelty was familiar. Noah saw me. His eyes went wide, a silent apology. He fumbled for the volume, but I held up a hand. "Stop." I walked the last 10 feet to the desk, setting my suitcase down with a quiet thud. I leaned toward the receiver. The grandfather clock ticked. The waves crashed outside. "Tessa," I said. My voice was low, perfectly calm. "I own this hotel." Silence. Absolute. Dead air silence. I pictured her on the other end, her perfectly curated Instagram life flashing before her eyes. The line clicked. She had hung up. The earthquake wasn't a physical tremor. It was a sudden, violent shift deep in my chest. A fault line of disrespect that had just ruptured. This weekend was not just any weekend. It was the 3rd anniversary of the Grey Heron's opening. It was the weekend I had invited my son, Daniel, to celebrate with me, an invitation he had accepted 4 weeks ago. And Tessa, his wife, was attempting to bulldoze it, to erase me from my own space and replace me with her family. The anger was cold, not hot. It was the anger of a CEO, not a wounded mother. This was not a family dispute. This was a hostile actor attempting to disrupt my business. I turned to Noah, who looked like he had seen a ghost. "Noah," I said, my voice crisp. "Prepare the main conference room. I want fresh, dark coffee for 4. And I want the recording equipment activated. We will log this as a standard hotel safety protocol. A guest attempting to fraudulently cancel another guest's reservation." He nodded, already looking relieved to have orders. "Second," I continued, "lock those 5 adjacent rooms in the system under an administrative hold. Right now. From this moment. No modifications to any booking under the name Ellison or Hart are to be made over the phone. Require a digital signature and matching credit card authorization for any changes. Understood. Yes. Mrs. Ellison. Absolutely. Good. And Noah. Get me the complete log from the switchboard for the last 10 minutes, including the incoming number, and check the lobby security camera footage. I want a copy of my arrival and this interaction time-stamped. This was not just about stolen rooms or a ruined weekend. This was about the slow, methodical erosion Tessa had been practicing for years. I pulled out my own phone. I found her number. I dialed. She picked up on the third ring, her voice a clipped. "What, you have 20 minutes?" I said. "You and Daniel. Meet me at my hotel." I didn't wait for a reply. I hung up. I looked at the grandfather clock, 20 minutes. The game was set. The conference room at the Grey Heron is my favorite. It's not large, but it has a single, solid slab of reclaimed pine as its table, and a wall of glass that overlooks the most rugged part of the Harbour Ridge coastline. I stood there, watching the waves, and felt the past decade settle over me. After my husband died, the silence in our old suburban house was too loud. So I sold it. I sold everything that wasn't essential, took out loans that made my accountant's hands shake, and I poured every cent and the last of my good years into this place. I designed all 12 boutique rooms myself. I argued with contractors. I sanded drywall. I chose every thread in the linens. The Grey Heron isn't just a business. It's the life I built to save myself. The ivory white walls, the cool grey stone, the gardens that smell of salt and lavender. It's all me. My son, Daniel, is 32. He is a good man, kind to a fault, with his father's gentle eyes and a deep-seated avoidance of conflict. He is the best part of me. And then there is Tessa. Tessa is an exercise in Polish. Her clothes are immaculate, her hair is never out of place, and she speaks with a kind of polite, biting sarcasm that she mistakes for wit. She is obsessed with the appearance of success, the image of a perfect life. When she and Daniel got married, I was hopeful. I wanted to see my son happy. As a wedding gift, I gave them something I loved. Not a check, but something tangible. A set of 6 dining chairs, handmade from solid walnut by a local artisan. They were beautiful, modern but timeless. They were meant to be the start of their family table, a place for traditions. But I am a practical woman. I've seen too many good intentions end in messy legal battles. With the chairs, I included a formal gift letter. It was polite, warm, but it contained one specific clause, a conditional gift. The letter stated that the chairs were a gift for their personal use, and if they were ever used as collateral, security, or leverage for any financial transaction, donative control would immediately revert to me, the giver. Daniel thought it was odd. Tessa laughed and called it Martha's little contract. She signed the acknowledgement. I remember the first time I went to their new house for dinner. I was excited. I walked into the dining room, and Tessa was beaming. "We're having family dinner," she announced. Her parents were there, and her sister, and they were all sitting in the walnut chairs I had bought. Tessa, sitting at the head of the table in the carver chair, looked like a queen on a throne. She gestured to the side. "Martha, we saved you a seat." It was a metal folding chair, a cold, wobbly afterthought placed at the edge of the rug, just outside the circle of light. I sat there, my knees bumping the table leg, and watched my daughter-in-law hold court from the seat I had gifted her. After that, my invitations to Daniel were always met with a gentle deflection. "Oh, Mom, we'd love to, but we're busy with Tessa's family this weekend." Or, "Tessa's parents are having a barbecue. We can't miss it." I was being managed, politely and methodically erased from my son's family life. So I built my hotel. I channeled every bit of longing, every missed holiday, every unanswered text into the mortar of the grey heron. This place is not just my sanctuary, it's my fortress. This weekend, the hotel's 3rd anniversary, was supposed to be different. This was for me and Daniel. I had the file right here in my briefcase, the invitation I had sent him 8 weeks ago. His enthusiastic, confirmed reply, I wouldn't miss it for the world. "Mum, I'm booking the Heron Suite, the paid-in-full invoice for that suite, in his name." This weekend was supposed to have no audience, no script, just a mother and her son. I looked down from the conference room window, out at the gravel parking lot. A sleek, black SUV, one I did not recognize, pulled aggressively into the space reserved for the owner. The headlights cut through the late afternoon mist. They were here. The heavy oak doors opened before I had even reached the lobby. Tessa swept in, all sharp angles and expensive perfume. My son, Daniel, trailed a pace behind her. His shoulders slumped. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Tessa fixed a bright, brittle smile on her face when she saw me standing by the desk. "Martha, there you are." She laughed, a high, thin sound that didn't reach her eyes. "I was just trying to sort out a small booking adjustment. Your staff here seems to be a little confused." I did not smile back. I let the silence stretch, just long enough for the grandfather clock to tick 3 times. I gestured to the polished brass plaque on the wall behind Noah, the one I'd hung myself. It was large, simple, and clear. Proprietor Martha Ellison. My gaze returned to hers. An adjustment, I kept my voice low, but it carried across the reclaimed wood floors. "You called my front desk, identified yourself as my daughter-in-law, and demanded they cancel my personal, confirmed reservation. In my hotel, beside her." Daniel flinched. He looked down at the floor, a deep, painful flush creeping up his neck. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Mum?" he mumbled, his voice thick with shame. "Mum, I am so sorry. Daniel?" I kept my tone level, cutting through his apology. "Did you, or did you not, confirm with me 4 weeks ago, by email, that you would be here this weekend, that you would be staying in the Heron Suite to celebrate the 3-year anniversary with me?" He swallowed, his eyes squeezing shut for a brief second. "Yes, I did. I confirmed it." Tessa shot him a look of pure venom. "Daniel, don't let her manage you. We can all be here. It's a big hotel." The word you used on the phone, Tessa, was not adjustment. The word you used was cancel. As for the rooms you demanded, I'm afraid that's no longer possible. What does that mean? She snapped. It means that per hotel protocol, when a potential fraud or hostile booking attempt is identified, all associated rooms are placed on administrative hold pending review. We are running at 98% capacity. We do not hold unconfirmed rooms during a peak anniversary weekend. The rooms are no longer available. Tessa's mask of polite concern dropped. She took a step closer. "You should think very carefully. Martha, my family has significant media connections in this region. We write for several travel and lifestyle columns. We could bring a lot of very positive attention to this little place, or we could make things very difficult." I almost smiled. The grey heron does not require exposure. Tessa, we require respect. We are booked solid for 6 months because we honour our reservations and value discretion. We do not trade our principles for a good review. As I spoke, Noah, who had been standing silently, stepped forward. He placed a single printed sheet on the desk. Mrs. Ellison, here is the switchboard log you requested. The call was received at 2:05 p.m., originating from a number registered to your daughter-in-law. The automated audio recording of the call, as per our standard procedure, has been logged as an incident report. I nodded. Thank you. Noah. The lobby was too public. The air was too thick. We will not be resolving this here, I said. My conference room is prepared. We are going to solve this. Today. I picked up the call log and turned toward the hall. Mom. Wait. Daniel's voice was desperate. He started toward me. Just let me talk to you alone. Please, just for 1 minute. We can fix this. He took 2 steps before Tessa's hand shot out, clamping onto his forearm. Daniel? No. Her voice was a low, furious hiss. We are a unit. You do not speak to her alone. You are not letting her divide us. He froze. He stood there, poised between his wife's tight grip and his mother's steady back. He looked at her hand on his arm. He looked at me, waiting. He looked at Noah, who was suddenly fascinated by a stack of brochures. The clock ticked. Tock. Then, in a single, quiet movement, Daniel looked at his wife. He lifted his own hand, wrapped his fingers around her wrist, and deliberately unpeeled her hand from his arm. No. Tessa, he said, his voice rough. We are going to that room, and we are going to listen. He dropped her wrist and nodded to me. Lead the way. We hadn't taken 2 steps toward the hallway when the heavy oak doors swung open again. This time, they were pushed with force, admitting a gust of cold wind and 3 new people. I recognized Lorraine, Tessa's mother, immediately. She wore her power like a heavy fur coat, expensive, suffocating, and slightly out of season. Flanking her were Sabrina, Tessa's older sister, and a man I assumed was Blake, the cousin Tessa often quoted. They didn't enter the lobby. They invaded it. Tessa. Darling. What's the hold-up? Lorraine's voice boomed, already assessing the room, her eyes dismissing the decor. She zeroed in on me, then on Noah behind the desk. Mother, Tessa said, her composure instantly reforming. Martha is just being difficult about our booking. Lorraine ignored me and advanced on Noah. She pulled a business card from a sleek leather case and slid it onto the desk. Lorraine Hart. Hart Media Ventures. Perhaps you've heard of us. Blake and Sabrina followed suit, sliding their own cards next to hers like they were playing a hand of poker. Noah looked at the cards, then at me. We need 5 rooms, immediately. Lorraine commanded. And I hope, for your sake, the service here improves. We are accustomed to a certain standard. She leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial, threatening level. You know, my husband plays golf with the head of the city's licensing board. He'd hate to hear that a new establishment wasn't meeting the standard. Inspectors are such a bother. The threat hung in the air, thick and oily. I stepped forward, placing myself between Lorraine and my employee. That won't be necessary. Lorraine. I looked at Noah. Noah, would you please retrieve the file from the back office, the one labelled Operations Binder? He nodded, grateful to escape, and returned a moment later with the heavy, leather-bound book. I opened it on the front desk, right next to their intimidating business cards. I turned the pages. Here we are. The Grey Heron's most recent fire inspection. Passed with 0 citations. Our commercial kitchen license, score 100%. And our lodging and occupancy permit from the City of Harbour Ridge, signed and approved. We are fully compliant. I closed the binder with a solid thud. Tessa, seeing her mother's tactic fail, tried another. Mom, stop. Look, Martha, just give us the 5 rooms. Be reasonable. My mother can get this hotel featured in the Sunday travel section, a full-page spread. All of this can just go away. I looked at Tessa. I looked at Daniel, who was watching this entire exchange, his face pale, his jaw clenched. We do not trade principles for publicity. Tessa? I said quietly. Lorraine scoffed, a truly unpleasant sound. She ran a hand over the reclaimed wood of the front desk. Principles. Darling, this place is rustic. It's quaint. But the furniture is trying so hard to be humble. It's just dated. We prefer sustainable. I countered, my voice still level. We prioritize craftsmanship over processed shine. It's solid. It's honest. And it's not showy. It's cheap, Sabrina muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Absolutely not, Noah said, his professionalism snapping. He stepped forward. Mrs. Ellison selected every piece. That desk is 17th century French pine. Blake cut him off with a laugh. 17th century. Why would you want something that old? Just buy a new one. I watched Daniel's face. He was watching his wife's family ridicule my life's work. He was watching them belittle my staff, the people I employed and respected. I saw his expression crack, not with anger, but with a deep, profound, second-hand shame. He looked physically ill. Before I could speak, a man sitting in the library alcove, an elderly gentleman who had been reading a newspaper, stood up. He walked over, his face etched in displeasure. "Excuse me," the man said, addressing Lorraine. "I have been trying to enjoy my afternoon, and I have instead been forced to listen to you berate this young man." He gestured to Noah, "and insult this fine establishment." Lorraine looked stunned, as if the furniture itself had spoken. The guest continued. "I am a guest here. I stay in hotels 300 nights a year, and I can tell you that this young man is one of the most professional and courteous receptionists I have ever encountered. Your behavior, madam, is appalling." The power in the lobby shifted, suddenly and completely. The public witness, the outside validation, had broken the heart's bubble of entitlement. I turned my gaze from the guest back to Lorraine, then to Tessa, and finally to Daniel. "I will remind you all of the house rules at the Grey Heron," I said. "They are posted by the door, and they are printed on every check-in card. We maintain a zero-tolerance policy for the harassment or abuse of our staff. If you insult my employees, you will be asked to leave the premises." I looked at the group. Now, as I said before, the conference room. We are going to solve this. The conference room was silent, filled only with the rhythmic sigh of the ocean against the glass wall. Noah had placed the pot of dark coffee and 4 cups on the sideboard, as I'd requested, but no one moved toward it. The hearts Lorraine, Sabrina, and Blake had arranged themselves on the far side of the massive pine table, a unified front of stony displeasure. Tessa stood at the head, attempting to look in charge, while Daniel had slumped into the chair nearest the door, his posture one of complete defeat. I placed my leather briefcase on the table and clicked open the two brass latches. The sound was sharp, like a gavel. "I won't waste your time," I said, my voice calm. "I'm not here to negotiate. I am here to present the facts." I pulled out the first file. It was a single, laminated sheet. I slid it down the polished wood to Daniel. "That is a printout of your email to me, dated October 12th, 4 weeks ago. Your confirmation for this weekend. Your booking for the Heron Suite." Tessa interrupted. "We've been over this. It was a scheduling conflict. I wasn't speaking to you." "Tessa." I didn't raise my voice. I simply kept my eyes on Daniel. I then pulled out my phone and placed it in the center of the table. Noah had already transferred the audio file. I pressed play. Tessa's voice, thin and commanding, filled the room. "I need 5 rooms for my family, starting tonight. And cancel the booking for the mother-in-law. Her name is Martha Ellison. Just cancel it." I let the recording play to the end, including the sound of her disconnecting the call. Daniel's head sank into his hands. He whispered, I thought you were just adding rooms." There was no confusion. I said. I pulled out the second document. "This is a bank transfer receipt from yesterday, at 10:17 a.m. It's from your joint checking account. Daniel. A non-refundable deposit for 5 suites at the Seabright Inn, just down the coast." Daniel's head snapped up. His face was a mask of hollow confusion. What I never approved that. I never even saw that. "I know," I replied, "which brings me to this." I slid over the third printout. It was a screenshot. A text message from Tessa to a group labeled Hart Family, sent less than 2 hours ago. I saw Lorraine and Sabrina flinch. They were in that group. The message was simple. "Taking over the rooms at the Grey Heron now. Mom. I've handled it. Handled it." I repeated. An interesting choice of words. This is an invasion of privacy." Tessa sputtered, her face red. "It's discovery. Tessa, it establishes intent. But it's not the primary issue." I reached back into my briefcase. "This," I said, "is why we are really here." I pulled out a heavy vellum envelope, and from it, a multi-page document. You'll remember, I'm sure, the set of 6 walnut dining chairs I gifted you for your wedding. A laugh of disbelief escaped from Lorraine. "Are you joking?" "We're talking about chairs, I said, looking directly at her. "I am talking about property." I slid the document to Tessa. "This is the signed and notarized gift letter you both acknowledged. I'll direct your attention to Clause 4. This gift is conditional. The items shall not be pledged, leased, or used as collateral for any financial transaction. Should this condition be violated, ownership and donative control revert immediately to the donor." Tessa had gone completely, deathly pale. "You see, I commissioned those chairs from Seafirth Woodworks," I continued, "and I am meticulous." I pulled out a small, laminated card. This is the receipt from the artisan, confirming the maker's mark he carved into the underside of each chair. My name. I then laid out the final, damning evidence. A series of text messages. These are between you, Tessa, and an interior decorator, dated 3 months ago. You were short on a deposit for your new living room. The decorator agreed to hold your spot and waive the immediate fee in exchange for taking the dining set as security. You used my chairs as collateral. You violated the gift letter. As if on cue, Noah, who had been standing by the door, stepped forward with an iPad. He placed it on the table. Already playing. "This," Noah said, his voice firm, "is from the neighborhood security feed from that same date. You told your husband the chairs were being taken for annual maintenance. We have confirmed with Seafirth Woodworks that no maintenance was ever scheduled. This is footage of you, Mrs. Ellison, supervising the decorators team as they loaded the chairs into an unmarked van." Daniel watched the video. He looked at the text messages. He looked at the bank transfer he knew nothing about. He looked at the email he had sent me, full of promises. The architecture of his life, built on his wife's casual, constant stream of lies, was collapsing in real time. The man looked broken. I began to gather my papers, neatly stacking them. "By the terms of the agreement you signed, those chairs reverted to my ownership 3 months ago. You have been holding my property, illegally, in your dining room." I closed the latches on my briefcase. The sound was final. "So, here is what will happen. Tonight, we will have a family dinner. Here, in my hotel." I stood up, my gaze locking on Tessa, then Daniel. "And we will have it on the chairs I bought." I led the way from the conference room, not speaking. The hearts followed. A small, thunderous cloud of indignation. Daniel trailed last, his gaze fixed on the floor. I didn't take them to the main dining room, which was bright with the dinner rush. I led them down a private hall to the solarium. It is my smallest, most intimate dining space. It's where I go when I need to think. A single, heavy, round table was set in the middle, perfectly laid for 6 places. The lights were dimmed to a warm, amber glow. Outside the wraparound glass walls, the Pacific churned, its dark waves capped with white. They filed in, uncertain. The room held the quiet tension of a stage. "What is this?" "A trap," Lorraine muttered, pulling at the collar of her silk blouse. "It's dinner," I replied. As if summoned by the word, the door swung open and Noah entered, pushing a large, stainless steel service trolley. It was covered by a heavy, starched linen cloth. He maneuvered it next to the table. They all watched the trolley. "Martha, I'm not in the mood for your games," Tessa said, her voice tight. "You were the one who wanted a family dinner." "Tessa, you were so insistent you tried to steal my reservation to get it. I merely made it happen." Noah nodded to me, his face impassive, and with one smooth motion, he pulled back the linen cover. They were beautiful. The 6 solid walnut dining chairs, gleaming under the warm light as if they were new. My staff had executed my instructions perfectly. Tied to the high back of 5 of the chairs was a simple, elegant, cream-coloured card, calligraphed with a name: Tessa, Lorraine, Sabrina, Blake, Daniel. The 6th chair, the main carver chair that had sat at the head of Tessa's table, was left blank. I invited them forward with a gesture. "Please, find your seat." Tessa didn't move. She was staring at the chairs, her face ashen. You took them. You actually..." I stepped to the trolley, which also held a leather folder. I opened it and placed the top document on the table in front of her. I repossessed them, legally, this morning, as per the conditional gift letter you signed. This, I tapped the paper, is the notarized repossession affidavit citing your breach of contract. And this, I tapped the second page, is the signed authentication from the master artisan at Seafirth, verifying my ownership mark on the underside of every single chair. They were retrieved from your decorator's storage unit 2 hours ago. Lorraine, recovering first, marched to the table and snatched up the preset menu. Salmon. Is that all I expected? Something more? Impressive. The condescension was automatic. A reflex. I didn't turn to face her. My hand moved to a small, silver button flush-mounted on the wall. It was a silent call button for hotel security. I just let my fingers rest on it. This is a private, family-run establishment. Lorraine. We don't tolerate public scenes. If you find the menu unsatisfactory, or the company, you are free to leave. But if you choose to stay, you will remain civil, or you will be escorted out. Her eyes followed my hand. The implications were clear. She stiffened, but she said nothing more about the menu. The room was silent, save for the ocean. Everyone was standing, frozen in this bizarre tableau. Then, Daniel moved. He walked slowly past Tessa, past his aunt and uncle. He walked to the empty carver chair, the seat of power, the one Tessa had used. He pulled it out, the sound of wood on the floor, a heavy scrape in the silence. But he didn't sit. He turned, his eyes finally meeting mine, and they were clear for the first time in years. He gestured to the empty seat. "Mom," he said, his voice rough. "Please, sit here." It was the folding chair, undone. It was the apology he couldn't verbalize. I walked to the head of the table and placed my hands on the smooth, cool walnut. I looked at the 5 of them, my son, and the family that had tried to swallow him. "I want you all to understand something," I said, my voice risontoing in the small space. "A chair is not just wood. A seat at the table is not just a place to eat. A seat is a voice. It is a symbol that you belong, that you are seen, and that you matter." My gaze found Tessa. When you take someone's seat away, when you relegate them to a cold, metal folding chair on the edge of the room, you are sending a message. You are telling them they are less, that they do not belong, that their voice is not welcome. I am not a victim. I will not be erased. And I will not have my son's family, my family built on a foundation of disrespect. I paused, letting the words settle. And I want to make one boundary clear. There are no children involved here. My grandchildren, your future children, will never be used as leverage in a fight. They will not be pulled into this. This ends here, tonight, with the adults in this room. That is a line that will never be crossed. I pulled the chair back fully. I am going to sit, and we are going to finish this. I sat down in the carver chair at the head of the table. The wood was solid and cool beneath my palms. The other 5 remained standing, a frozen audience. The silence was finally broken by Daniel. He didn't sit. He turned, his hands clenched at his sides, and he faced the room. "Mom," he began, his voice thick, and he looked at me. "I'm sorry. Not just for this weekend. I'm sorry for all the dinners I missed. For every time I said we're busy, when I meant Tessa said no. I'm sorry for the folding chair." He took a shaky breath. This toxic silence. It's been my fault. I let it happen. I let it fester because I didn't want the fight. I didn't want to choose. He looked over at Tessa, his face a landscape of regret. I turned down the promotion, the one in the regional office, the one we celebrated. I turned it down 2 weeks ago. Tessa's head, which had been bowed, snapped up. "What, I couldn't do it," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "I couldn't take the pressure. I was so emotionally exhausted from this, from managing all of this. I was starting to believe what your mother said, that I was weak, that I wasn't cut out for it. I let her silence you, Mum, and in doing it, I silenced myself. It was the most honest I had ever heard him be. Then, a sound I had never heard, Tessa began to cry. It was not the polite, misty-eyed sniffling of a woman seeking sympathy. It was a raw, ugly, soul-deep sob that tore out of her. Her perfect, polished mask dissolved. I don't know another way, she choked out, wrapping her arms around her own waist. She wasn't speaking to me or Daniel. She was speaking to the void. I don't know how to be without controlling everything. It's the only way I learned to survive. Her eyes, red and wild, darted to her mother. It was the only way to survive you. I said nothing. I did not offer comfort. This was not a moment for me to intervene. When the sobbing subsided into ragged breaths, I simply restated the facts. My boundaries are not flexible, I said. This hotel and my life are built on respect. You must respect my staff. You must respect our reservations. And you must respect my property. Lorraine, who had been watching her daughter unravel with a look of pure disgust, finally erupted. You pathetic failure. She spat, the words slicing through the room. She was looking at Tessa, crying like a baby. I gave you everything. I taught you how to be strong, how to get what you want. And you let this innkeeper, this old woman, beat you. You couldn't even handle it. The room went ice cold. The cruelty was so naked, so absolute. It sucked the air from the space. Daniel didn't hesitate. He physically stepped between Lorraine and Tessa. "Stop," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was hard as iron. Lorraine scoffed. "You're defending her? After what she did?" "No," Daniel said. "I'm not. But you will stop. You will not speak to her, or anyone, like that. Not here." Sabrina, the sister, who had been silent, suddenly reached out and grabbed Lorraine's arm. Her face was a mask of pure exhaustion. "Mom, stop. Just stop. It's over. Enough." I saw my opening. The family unit had fractured. "You have two options," I said, my voice cutting through the new silence. "One, you apologize. To me. And to Noah at the front desk. You, Tessa, will authorize the immediate return of the $5,000 deposit you took from your joint account for the other hotel, and you will acknowledge, formally, the return of my chairs. You will do this, and you may find your own lodging for the night. Or, two, you leave. All of you. Right now. You will be escorted from the property, and you will be permanently banned from the Grey Heron and every partner hotel in the Coastal Alliance. I will make the calls myself before you reach the end of the drive." Tessa stood frozen, the tears still wet on her face. She looked at her mother, the source of her pathology. Then she looked at Daniel, the man who had just confessed he was giving up his career because of the life she had built. The hesitation was real. For the first time, I saw her truly seeing the choice. A full minute passed. It was heavy as stone. The only sound was the wind and the sea, pounding against the glass, indifferent. Daniel broke the spell. He did not look at Tessa. He did not look at Lorraine. He looked at me, in my chair. "I'm staying here tonight," he said, "with my mum." Daniel's words hung in the air, a definitive, solid line drawn in the sand. He was staying. The Harts Lorraine, Sabrina, and Blake looked at him as if he had just sprouted a second head. Tessa just stared at him, her expression unreadable. I let his decision settle for a moment. Then I picked up my cell phone from the table. "This does not solve the immediate problem," I said, "which is that you, Lorraine, and your family have nowhere to stay." I dialed a number, and after 2 rings, I put it on speaker. "Carla. It's Martha Ellison. Carla, who owned the Seabright Inn, had a voice as warm as her fireplace. Martha, good to hear from you. Everything all right for the anniversary? Everything is under control. Carla, thank you. I have a situation here. You had a 5-room, non-refundable deposit made yesterday for a heart party." "Yes," she said, and I heard paper rustling. A bit last minute, but the money cleared. They were supposed to check in an hour ago. They are here with me now. They will not be staying at the Grey Heron. They will be coming to you. But I need you to hold those rooms for them. Can you do that? For you, Martha. Of course. But I know. The non-refundable deposit was made. Fraudulently. I am looking at the person who made it. Lorraine looked at Tessa, her eyes wide. "You paid for those rooms already. I have a condition for their check-in." "Carla," I continued, "I am going to have my employee, Noah, draft a simple 1-page conduct agreement. It will state that the Heart Party agrees to treat your staff with courtesy and that any harassment will result in immediate removal by police, with no refund. They must all sign it before you give them a single key." Carla didn't hesitate. "Best idea I've heard all week. I'll get the paperwork ready on my end. And one last thing. The funds for that deposit will be returned tonight." "Thank you." "Carla." "Wait," Lorraine shouted, lunging at the phone. "I'm not signing anything. This is ridiculous. I am a guest." Carla's voice, no longer warm, came through the speaker, loud and clear. "Then you are not a guest at my hotel. Ma'am, we are a small, independent establishment, just like the Heron. We do not have time for abusive clientele. No signed agreement, no rooms. Have a good night." The line clicked. I turned the phone off. The room was deathly quiet. Tessa, who had been watching this all, took a single step toward her mother. She spoke in a low, furious whisper. "If you do not sign that paper, if you make this scene any bigger, I am not going with you. I will not follow you." Lorraine's face, for the first time, showed a flicker of genuine panic. The power, her ultimate leverage over her daughter, was gone. She looked at Sabrina, at Blake, who both pointedly looked away, refusing to back her. She had lost her audience. She had lost her leverage. "Fine," she hissed. She snatched the pen from Noah, who had already materialized with the printed document from the sidebar printer. She scribbled her name. Cheap. Backwater town. She threw the pen down. "No one is cheap." "Lorraine," I said softly, picking up the pen. "Only behavior is cheap." Sabrina and Blake signed quickly, their faces grim. Tessa signed last. Noah gathered the pages. "Thank you. A copy will be sent to the Seabright Inn immediately, and a copy will be stored in our hotel's permanent management system." He then handed another, smaller folder to Lorraine. "Here are the directions and the check-in information for the inn. Lorraine, Sabrina." And Blake left without another word. They did not look at Tessa. They did not look at Daniel. They were simply gone. Tessa remained, standing by her empty chair. Daniel moved to the door, He turned to Noah. I need to check in. I have a reservation for the Heron Suite. Yes, sir. Mr. Ellison, Noah said, his professionalism returning instantly. If you'll just follow me to the front desk, I'll need to see your ID and credit card, as per our standard procedure. I watched my son, my 32-year-old son, follow my employee to the desk to check in properly. No special privileges, no exceptions. It was the right way. Tessa watched him go. Then she turned to me. She was pale, but the tears were gone. Martha, she started. I just held up a hand. Not tonight. Tessa, we are all exhausted. I know, she said quickly, her voice low. I know. I need to ask. Tomorrow, can I talk to you alone? Without. She gestured to the door her mother had left through. Without her. I studied her face. The request was genuine. We'll see, I said. First, you have financial matters to resolve. Daniel returned, his keycard in hand. He walked past Tessa and took the seat with his name on it. Tessa, after a long, heavy pause, sat in her own. The room was now set me at the head, my son to my right, my daughter-in-law to my left. The other three hearts, Lorraine, Sabrina, and Blake had, by default, taken their assigned seats as well. A small island of resentment. The staff, who had been waiting, entered. They poured water and sparkling cider. There would be no alcohol tonight. I raised my glass of cider. A toast. To clarity. I took a sip. They watched me. Now, I said, reaching for the last file in my briefcase. The family dinner can begin. I pulled out the original gift letter, the vellum now slightly worn. I unfolded it. I believe in reading the fine print. I said, so let's review what we all agreed to. I read the greeting. I read the warm wishes for their marriage. I read the description of the chairs. And then I read the two final, crucial parts. My voice was clear and steady, filling the small room. Clause 4. This gift is conditional. I read the entire clause about using them as collateral, the one that proved the breach. And then, the conclusion. I read the final lines I had written to them all those years ago. My deepest wish for you both is a long and happy life, and that you use these chairs to build a family table of your own. May you always have a home built on mutual respect. I folded the letter. My eyes met Tessa's. Mutual respect. That was the term. That was the contract you broke. Long before you broke the one about the chairs. As if on cue, the faint headlights of a large truck swept across the glass walls of the solarium as it pulled into the service drive. Ah, I said, checking my watch. Right on time? What is that? Daniel asked. That, I said, is the Seafirth Woodworks truck. They are here for the chairs. Tessa's head shot up. You're taking them back? No. Tessa, I said, I'm not. I already took them back. They are here to do the job I hired them for. They are going to take them to the workshop, sand down the maker's mark, and recarve my name. Then they will be refinished, preserved, and returned to my private collection. Your violation will be scrubbed from the wood. My voice, my ownership, will be the only one left. I then turned to Noah, who was standing by the door with a tablet and a portable printer. Now, for the final piece of business. The $5,000. Noah stepped forward and placed the tablet in front of Tessa. It was a digital authorization form to transfer the funds from their joint account back into Daniel's personal savings account. Tessa stared at it. You can't do this, Lorraine hissed from across the table. It's theft, it's restitution. I corrected. Sign it. Tessa. Tessa picked up the stylus. Her hand was shaking. She signed her name. Noah took the tablet. He tapped the screen. We waited. 1 moment. The transaction is processing. And it's complete. The funds have been transferred. Mr. Ellison, a receipt has been emailed to you both. A low, guttural sound of disgust came from Lorraine. You let her do this. You're all pathetic. This whole place is staffed by morons. That was the line. My fingers, which had been resting near the wall, pressed the silver security button. Not 2 seconds later, the door opened, and my head of security, a tall, polite man named David, stepped in. Mrs. Ellison, is there a problem? Yes, David. This guest, I gestured to Lorraine, has just insulted my staff. She is no longer welcome on the premises. Please escort her to her vehicle. Lorraine's face went purple. You can't. David simply stepped behind her chair. Ma'am, please. This way. Lorraine, seeing the implacable calm in his eyes, knew she had lost. She threw her napkin down and stormed out, David following her closely. The room was left with the 4 of us. Sabrina, the sister, looked horrified. She fumbled in her purse and pulled out a wad of cash, shoving it onto the table. This is for the staff, for Noah, for all of this. I am so sorry. She and Blake scrambled from their chairs and fled. I took the money and held it out to Noah. Please make sure this is distributed to the entire evening shift. Yes, ma'am, he said, taking it. He then quietly, finally, closed the door, leaving the 3 of us alone at the table. Daniel turned his chair, not to the table, but to his wife, Tessa. He said her name, and it was flat, exhausted. She looked at him, her eyes wide with fear. We are not doing this anymore, he said. The lies, the secrets, the manipulation, my silence, all of it. It's over. He leaned forward. So here is my choice. Either we go to counseling, real counseling, both of us, together. We tell the truth, we fix what's broken, or we find out it can't be fixed. Or we call a lawyer, a good one, and we end this, civilized, before we become them. He pointed to the door his mother-in-law had been forced through. There were no tears on Tessa's face, just the stark, cold reality. She nodded, a single, sharp dip of her chin. I'll go, she said, her voice a reedy whisper. I'll go to therapy. She looked at me, then at Daniel, and not to keep up appearances, to fix myself. Daniel nodded. He pushed back his chair and stood up. He walked to the glass, looking out at the ocean, his back to both of us. I looked at Tessa. I looked at my son. This weekend, I said, my voice final, belongs to me and my son. It is the 3rd anniversary of this hotel. No one will interrupt it, no one will spoil it, and no one will take our seats. Daniel stood. He didn't speak, but he walked the few feet to where I sat at the head of the table. He placed his hands on the back of my chair, the solid walnut carver. Then, deliberately, he turned the chair, angling it to squarely face the table, to face them both. It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a realignment of power. He was placing me at the head, not as a guest, but as the head. He was establishing a new order. He stepped back and looked at Tessa. Tessa, who had been watching his hands, watching his action, took a small, shaky step forward. She looked directly at me. Her eyes were clear of tears, but they were not empty. They were full of a terrible, new-found clarity. "I am sorry," she said, her voice quiet, but not weak. "I am sorry for taking your chairs, and I am sorry." She swallowed. "For taking your seat in this family." I held her gaze. I did not soften. I did not offer immediate forgiveness. That is a payment to be earned, not a gift to be given. "Keep your word, Tessa," I said. "Go to the therapy. Do the work. Then, we'll talk." She nodded once. She understood. From the lobby, far down the hall, I heard the faint, final sound of the heavy oak doors closing. A moment later, the distinct, angry click of Lorraine's high heels on the gravel path faded into the sound of the ocean. The storm had passed. Noah, who had been standing silent, witness by the door, stepped forward. He leaned in, his voice for my ears only. "Mrs. Ellison." The audio recording, the signed conduct agreement, the transfer receipt from the bank, and the security logs. They are all saved, time-stamped, and backed up to the cloud. I gave him a single nod. "Thank you." "Noah." I looked at the table, at my son, and at my daughter-in-law. "Here at the Grey Heron," I said, my voice resonating in the quiet room. "There is a seat for everyone, as long as they know how to show respect." Daniel walked over to me. He didn't say a word. He reached into his pocket and took out the keycard for the Heron suite. He placed it on the table in front of me, next to my hand. It was a promise. It was an anchor. He was staying. I let my fingers rest on the key. I looked at the two of them, poised on the edge of a new, uncertain future. The warm lights of the solarium glinted on the polished wood. The sea whispered outside. The conflict was not over, but it was resolved. Here, at this table. I picked up the keycard. Then, I put my hands on the arms of my chair. I pulled the heavy walnut forward, the legs scraping softly, definitively, against the stone floor. I sat down, in the center, at the head. I looked at them both. "Now, we'll have family dinner. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you are tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and let's all connect and share our thoughts. Please subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, like this video, and give it a little extra support by hitting that hype button, so this story can be heard by more people who need it.